Practice. Good call. It was the Australian Grand Prix this morning. Well, it was Friday practice of the Australian Grand Prix, and it was action-packed. GPS failing, wet conditions, Alonso fastest, Max fastest, spins galore, and Daniel Ricciardo was back in the paddock because it was his home Grand Prix, and Oscar Piastri didn't really perform the expectations, but again, the McLaren's not there. Homeboy or no homeboy, he couldn't really do it. But we do kick off with FP1, which did conclude at 3:30 in the morning here in UK time. But you know what, I'm not complaining. But Max did top it. Like I said, GPS issues for everyone, and therefore if there's no tracking, it's just going to make impeding and all that good stuff really difficult to track, because the tracking went down. But for Verstappen held a 4/10 gap, or 5/10, whatever you want to call it, over Hamilton. The Red Bull at the end, not the Red Bull, the red flag at the end of Logan Sargent basically messed up quite a lot of people's low fuel runs in this session, and also Logan Sargent didn't run in FP2, but Verstappen led for Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, Leclerc, Sainz is your top six, you know, the usual sort of people this season. Also Russell and Stroll a wee bit further down, then you've got like Norris and they're doing a really good job in 7th. In a McLaren, they're going to need to do better this weekend, there's no two ways about it. Gasly got P8, then we've got Russell, Stroll, Albon, Piastri in 12th, Hulkenberg 13th, De Vries 14th, Sargent, Ocon, Tsunoda, Bottas, Guan Yu Zhou and Magnussen. I tell you what, the Ferrari-powered cars look awful. I mean, Ferrari themselves don't look... Well, I'm saying Ferrari themselves don't look bad. I mean, in this first session, they're like 8/10, 6/10 off the leader. That's just not good enough for Ferrari. I mean, at least with Mercedes, right, they've openly admitted they've went with the wrong concept. Ferrari are trying to give us the illusion that, a few tweaks here and that they're going to be right in the fight with Red Bull. I don't see it. Add in their strategy blunders, they're not going to be there. I think it's equally as worrying time for Ferrari that it is for Mercedes. But Max spun, there was loads more blocking, there was an instant of Stroll can ruin the fast turn 11 and 12, and there was about 20 cars in his way. But I guess the good news is there was no rain effective running. I mean, I like rain, but I do like to see it across all 3 days. But I mean, if you're going to pick it not to land on a day, it would be Friday because it's kind of irrelevant and it messes up, like, you know, the long runs and all that stuff. But as second practice took place, rain fell about 15 minutes into the session and Alonso had the fastest lap. He did set it on the mediums, and it was only a tenth slower than Max's lap on softs in FP1. But Charles Leclerc was second, so a bit better for Ferrari. But again, like, I mean, he's 5/10 off Alonso. Like, yes, I know Verstappen is 7/10 off Alonso. It is only practice, but we know what the Red Bull's already capable of. With the Ferrari, their pace here is consistent to what they've shown in the first practice. So again, I think it's worrying signs for them. Russell down in 4th. Then with Carlos Sainz, Ocon, Perez, Norris, Hulkenberg and Gasly. So Norris consistently in the top 10. Tsunoda up in 11th. Bottas showing a bit better than what he was doing in FP1. I did label him as flop of the weekend, which I still think could come true if we're being honest. But again, you know, very strange session with all the rain. We had Hamilton down in 13th, so for second down to 13th. Unlucky for some, Alonso's come out and buried Lewis Hamilton. Might make a fid on that because it's quite spicy. Fernando, Oscar Piastri again, a wee bit underwhelming in 14th. Guan Yu Zhou sitting in 15th. We've then got Lance Stroll again, man. He's just... I mean, Alonso's top and Lance Stroll's 16th. Mixed conditions or not, that doesn't look good for you, right? It doesn't. Then we've got Nick De Vries in 17th, Alexander Albon in 18th, and Magnussen in 19th. Also, all the Ferrari-powered cars did, in fact, take power unit changes this week, apart from Ferrari themselves. So if that doesn't show you that there's actually a big problem with that engine supplier, I don't know what does. But yeah, that was it. Still a bit more drama in this session. Lance Stroll could barely hang onto the car in the wet conditions, but it doesn't look like we're going to get any wet running. Of course, in the preview yesterday, BBC was suggesting a wee bit of moisture in the air for Saturday, but anywhere else was saying no. So yeah, I'm going to go with fake news for the BBC. But Logan Sargent, of course, didn't set a lap time due to his engine blowing up in practice 1. But tomorrow we've got final practice. There probably won't be a final practice review on the channel, but there'll be qualifying. God damn it! It kicks off at 6 a.m. and it should be very interesting. Realistically, it's still Red Bulls to lose, but Be interested to see how close Alonso can get, because we know how well he went here last year. But until then, that's your Friday practice recap. Until next time, peace.